It's the Sid. I'm going to be reading you a little book about Elvis Presley. Get excited, get excited. See, I'm not a huge Elvis fan, but I like a few of his songs, and so I'm gonna be reading this book about him. I stole this from a store that I shouldn't have stolen it from, because I'm evil. Because it was like a small business, and it's not right to steal from stores like that. Don't do that, okay? I'm a kleptomaniac or something, so, I just steal, just sometimes for no reason, but I mean, I did want the book, and now I get to read it to you, so, there's that. So you can see the front and the back. It's got pictures in it, so I'll be showing you the pictures when they come up. See, there's, I believe, 7. That's right, 7 chapters. You can see them. It's not a terribly long book, so maybe I'll be able to get through it in just one sitting. We'll have to see. Chapter 1, A Legend Begins. The chunk of shrapnel in the back of his knee hurt like crazy, but he tried not to let on to the boy who held his hand as they trudged up the long, winding road toward the gray columned mausoleum at the top of the hill. The leg always bothered him on hot, muggy days like this, and occasionally he'd have to give in and limp a little before once more pulling himself stiffly erect. Tee-hee, erect. That's a funny word, isn't it? Yes, hee-hee-hee. Yeah, I might sometimes introject with my reading, because I like to... Is that the right word, introject? I just mean, I'll interrupt, I'll interrupt sometimes to, say funny things or whatever, or just give my opinion, so I hope that's alright. Anyway. Stirred from somewhere deep inside by a recollection that, as had the man whose tomb they were approaching, he had served proudly in the U.S. Army. Finally, the almost mile-long climb was over, and they stood silently before the somber marble structure. After a few moments, the man brushed a rolled-up sleeve across reddening eyes and bent over the lad. Son, it may not mean much to you now, he said softly, but someday you'll be able to tell folks that you were among those who came to pay their respects to Elvis Presley, and that your daddy said as how he was a good old boy. I don't really understand the wording of that. I wonder if that was like a typo or what. I don't really understand the quote there. And that your daddy said as how he was a good old boy. I don't know. Anyway, I mean, I'm reading it word for word. Anyway. It seemed appropriately in keeping with the tradition of American legends that Elvis Presley, who was to become one of them almost in his own time, was born poor, and that may not even be a strong enough word to describe the desperate circumstances under which Elvis Presley and his twin brother Aaron came into the world. Dirt poor would be more like it in the jargon of the folks of Tupelo, Mississippi, where the double birth occurred on January 8th, 1935. That's interesting. See, my birthday is January 6th, so it's a bit close to Elvis's. The then not very world-shaking event took place in the little old 2-room frame shotgun house that Vernon Elvis Presley had built for his wife Gladys. Aaron died shortly. Elvis was sickly, but after a few months, when it was touch and go, he rallied and began to get stronger. The circumstances attendant on Elvis's survival were to play an important part in the development of the future star. Almost from the beginning, he was overprotected by his parents. His mother his mother fussed after him constantly, worrying over every sniffle or sneeze and going without herself to lavish on him what simple luxuries as the struggling couple could provide for their beloved baby boy. Vernon Presley took every job that came his way, including factory work and trucking. Gladys tried her best to help out, going to work in a factory too, but things were always tight. One memory of that poverty that always stuck with Elvis was the Christmas his folks were so poor that when it came time for a local charity to distribute gift baskets, the Presleys qualified. At one point, the serious-minded child made a promise to his mother that when he grew up, they wouldn't be poor anymore. The way things were going for the little family at the time might have made most people doubt the likelihood of that promise being fulfilled. But Gladys Presley never for an instant was uncertain that her boy was destined for great things. She worshipped him, and the feeling was mutual, as was the love and respect Elvis had for his father. There was worship of another kind in the household, too. Church-going was an important part of the hard life of the Presleys, and naturally, little Elvis had to go along. There was no money for babysitters. It wasn't long before Gladys noticed that her son had an ear for music. Her first intimation came, she once recalled, when Elvis was just a little fellow, not more than 2 years old. He would slide off my lap in church and run down the aisle and scramble up to the platform. Then he'd just stand there looking at the choir and trying to sing along with them. He was too little to know the words, but he could carry the tune. It wasn't too many years before Elvis did know the words, and the youngster would be singing right along with his parents at church conventions, revivals, and camp meetings. The closeness that developed between the boy and his folks during these soul-touching, and then it cuts off to the next page, but there's some pictures here, so I'll just finish the sentence. The closeness that developed between the boy and his folks during these soul-touching encounters served to strengthen the family ties and play a vital... ties and play a vital role in their future relationship. Sorry, I got confused. I apologize. I would like to show you some pictures. So we've got Vernon and Gladys worked themselves into sick beds, trying to better life for Elvis. In turn, he vowed to someday give them a home better than his birthplace. Yeah, see, this is another instance where the words don't make sense. Vernon and Gladys worked themselves into sick beds, trying to better life for Elvis. That's what it says. So yeah, there are some typos in this book right off the bat. Very interesting. This book was, I think it says it was published in 1977, so I don't really know what the history is on this book, but it's interesting. And then the next page also has more pictures. It says, at 13, cowboy-suited Elvis sang God's music at County Fair in Tupelo. Later came home to join Mom in hymns. Shock of her death showed on him, and Dad, stone on grave, calls her the sunshine of our home. Yeah. Shock of her death showed on him, and Dad, stone on grave, calls her the sunshine of our home. Okay, yeah, sorry, I just had to reread that to understand it. So there you go. Some nice pictures there. Music became an important part of Elvis's everyday life too. Shy as a child, he didn't have too many friends, and it was only when singing that he was able to move outside himself and escape the loneliness that visited him when his parents were at work or out calling on the neighbors. Curled up on the old wooden swing on the front porch of the family's little frame house, he would launch into his favorite hymns and pass the hours until Vernon and Gladys came home. Gradually, the gangly youngster also became more at ease performing before audiences and began singing at small-town fairs in the area. It never occurred to him at the time that his musical ability might be a way out of the poverty that still plagued him. To him then, he once remembered, the important thing was only to be somebody and to feel like somebody. He never suspected that someday he would be one of the biggest of the somebodies. At 12, Elvis acquired a possession that was to make a decided change in his future. Using money saved up from what little allowance his father could give him in exchange for running errands and helping the always busy Gladys with the household chores, Elvis purchased a guitar for $12.95. It replaced the broomstick he sometimes would strum as he sang. Oh, interesting. Later, his mother would remember that he liked that guitar best of all his things, she recalled. He would sit in the front of the radio, picking out the melodies or playing our old phonograph and try to learn all the songs. The following year, the Presleys moved to Memphis, Tennessee, where Vernon's job prospects looked brighter. Elvis fell in love with the slow-moving city on the banks of the swiftly passing Mississippi. His affection for his new-found hometown was to stick with him for the rest of his life, as he constantly returned to there to live. When Elvis began attending Memphis L.C. Humes High School, he discovered that he could make friends easily. The guys liked him, so did his teachers, who always were impressed by his politeness, a habit learned as a child and continued into his days as one of the most influential entertainers in the world. His sirs, ma'ams, Mr. and Mrs. frequently swayed reporters and editors who had predetermined a dislike for the young star before ever having an opportunity to meet him. The girls at Humes High were especially taken with Elvis, but at his parents' insistence, he didn't start dating until he was 16. Isn't that funny? After that, it wasn't hard for him to make up for the lost time, but only one of the young co-eds, Dixie Locke, captured his heart. I think I might just read the first paragraph, the first chapter. So, I think I'll do, one chapter per video. I don't think I actually want to read this all at once, so I'm just gonna finish up this chapter. We still got a couple pages left. But, it's not a terribly long book, but I don't want to strain my voice too much, so I'm just gonna go through one chapter for today, and, we can do it a chapter at a time. I think that sounds reasonable, don't you? Don't you? Yes. While at school, Elvis had found a job as a movie usher and was helping out at home whenever he could. At Humes, too, Elvis, who had a secret yearning to be a policeman, got his first chance to wear a uniform when he joined the ROTC. It was a much more manly-looking youth of 15 who donned the khaki than the pretty-faced boy who had worn a cowboy suit to appear at fairs just 2 years earlier. After graduation, Elvis went on to work as a $35 a week truck driver for the Crown Electric Company of Memphis. He still was living at home, always most comfortable in the company of his parents, and dating frequently. He tried the going steady route occasionally, but never found the woman who could replace music as his first love after mother, and the best medicine for being lonely. As he watched his friends get engaged, marry, and eventually drift away, the hard-working truck jockey turned more and more to improving and using his musical talent. At first, Elvis sang for his own amusement. Then he tried working in local clubs and at back county concerts. Frequently, he was embarrassed by flirting women, married ones, who tried to attract the handsome young entertainer's attention. Interesting. And all the while, he kept listening to his favorites on the local radio stations, particularly the black outlet WDIA, to learn the nuances of the words and music of such standouts as Little Junior Parker, Chuck Lewis, Kokomo Arnold, and the man who influenced Elvis's style the most, Arthur Big Boy Crudup or Crudup? I actually have never heard of this person. I apologize. Finally, he thought he was ready for the big time and used his savings for a trip to New York City. He didn't impress anyone on Broadway or the people conducting the auditions for Arthur Godfrey's Talent Scouts program who rejected him. He returned to Memphis. One day when he was 19, Elvis took what proved to be a momentous step. As he once recalled it, I walked into Sun Records and asked Mr. Sam Phillips if I could pay to have a record made. I just wanted to hear what I sounded like, and besides, I thought it would make a nice birthday present for my mother. It cost me $4, and I recorded My Happiness, and that's when your heartaches begin. Mr. Phillips kind of liked my voice, and he took my name. He called me 18 months later. Sorry. The timing of that call was to make a tremendous impression on Elvis. Just the previous day, Vernon Presley has been told by his doctor that he had to quit work. That same night, Elvis had sought the help he felt was the best. He prayed, and the next afternoon he got what he considered ever after as an answer to that prayer. Phillips's request that he come in and cut a professional quality record, one that he would release, working with Elvis, who had his own ideas on what he did best. Working with Elvis, who had his own ideas on what he did best. Phillips, the man whose Sun label would become famous for discovering Johnny Cash, Charlie Rich, Jerry Lee Lewis, Ike Turner, B.B. King, and of course Elvis himself, cut two sides. One of the numbers was a bluegrass standard, Blue Moon of Kentucky. The other was That's All Right Mama, suggested by Elvis and written by Big Boy Crudup. I'm very sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I really don't know who that is. You know, I pride myself on being fairly knowledgeable about rock history and stuff, you know, and music history in general, but I do not know who that person is, so, you know, forgive me if I say the name wrong. I don't know how to say it. Phillips, who had sensed that Elvis was a white boy who could sing black, sent off the combination of white country music and blues to local radio stations. The first local disc jockey who played it immediately got 47 phone calls demanding more of the same. Within a week, Phillips was hard at work trying to turn out over 6,000 orders for the platter and rushing to record more numbers by Elvis, who had, said one critic, set the world afire. The instant success of the record and the uproar over the new singer brought onto the scene the man who was to become responsible for guiding the soaring rocket that had burst over Memphis. He was Colonel Tom Parker, a former carnival barker. That's funny. Colonel Tom Parker, a former carnival barker. Isn't that fun? Those words? I think so. turned song promoter and one shrewd enough to see that, with proper handling, Elvis could be a hot property. He signed a personal management contract with Elvis, promising his new protege. Is that how you pronounce it? Protege? Prodigy. It's prodigy. My mistake. I'm stupid. I'm so sorry. But protege does sound like a real word though. But it's prodigy. I'm just stupid. I've never actually read that word out loud, or like I've never read the word prodigy before. Wait, no, I don't even know actually. Anyway, not important. It's just a word. Within 2 years, I'll turn you into the highest paid entertainer in show business. Never has a promise been kept so resoundingly, with the possible exception of General Douglas MacArthur's stirring "I shall return." I don't actually know what that's talking about. I don't know who that person is. But I reckon he returned. I reckon he did. By the time the Colonel and Elvis had worked out their deal, Sun Records had recorded 3 more numbers by its hottest talent, and all were hits on a regional basis. They attracted the attention of an RCA Records executive who made a point of listening to Elvis personally in Nashville in 1955 and instantly having his company buy up Sun's contract with the young performer. Colonel Parker went with the deal. He already had Elvis out entertaining locally as the Hillbilly Cat, and the star himself got a $5,000 bonus for inking the pact. Elvis used the cash to buy what was to be his first Cadillac, and the beginning of a stable of expensive cars that never ceased to grow. RCA paid Sun $38,000 for Elvis and got what was probably the best return ever on an investment. And that's the end of the chapter. The next chapter is called An Idol is Born. So you'll be able to hear that story when we come back to it, but for now, that's all you're gonna get. There were no more pictures. You saw all the pictures. I know you're thinking, oh, wasn't I supposed to see more pictures? Well, look, man, I didn't make the book, alright, so if there isn't enough pictures for you, don't take it up with me. I didn't make this thing, man. Okay? Don't get all angry with me, dude. I'll eat you. Anyway, have a nice day. I love you.